This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
My name is Kiani Mills, and this podcast is created to help you see, feel, and experience the human side of business. I'm a business owner, an entrepreneur, and a parent. And like many who have travelled this path before me, I've been through the lows of the lows and the gut-wrenching pain. But I've been through the triumphs and the wins and the indescribable highs, all of which I consider to be my lessons in the school of life. On this show, we are going to start some conversations to ignite new world ideas into some very old age businesses. So if you're a leader, a business mind, or an entrepreneur, get ready to think, act, and feel differently so that we can all reach a new level of business success together. So, what are you waiting for?
Welcome back to this week's episode of She Can Humanize Business, where I like to shine a light on humans doing business the human way as it should be done. And I'm bringing in guests who are not only living, but they are running, growing, or employed in a business that is a really human-centric business, because in this day and age, we're not robots, as much as my 14-year-old would like to remind me that everything is in the palm of our hands on our phones. We are still humans, and this is exactly why this podcast was created. So I'm very, very, very excited to introduce my guest for today, Susan Dean. Welcome, Susan.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, me too. And as Susan and I had a chat before, and I was saying you weren't aware of this, but there were some synchronicities to us having a conversation, and we've spoken twice today, lucky me. But yes, it was a beautiful conversation with a friend of mine who has published a book through Susan's company. And at the same time, I was talking about doing my book, and what do you know, I had a DM in my Instagram from Susan's company about coming on the podcast. So to me, that's like the trifecta of winning. And you and I have had a cool chat this morning as well. So it is meant to be that you are here today. So kick us off and tell us, the question that I ask everybody is, what does humanizing business mean to you?
I haven't been asked that specific question, but what I think it is we are all unique human beings, and that we all bring something, whether that brings something to the business, as in you're a staff or an employee, whether it be something that you as an individual bring to the world. We're all human, we're all unique. We all bring something. And what I think is that when we allow the humans around us to bring their best self, we get to experience that. We get to embrace that, and we get to see where they've got something to share that we could benefit from if we just were in that present space. So I think it's just about understanding that we're all unique, and we've all got something to bring to life, to the world, to business, to everything. So I think it's just, if that's the long-winded kind of thing that came out, but that's from the heart.
No, I love it. And it's beautiful, and it sits so perfectly and in alignment with what I now know to be your spirit and your nature and the way that you run your business.
Absolutely. I think the one thing that came about was, my daughters, when they were doing a part-time job and they were working in a cafe, and I remember, they'd grown up with me being an entrepreneur from a young age, and they'd seen that, that creativity. And I remember them saying, that was their part-time job, and I encouraged them to get out and, experience that world and earn their own sort of money. And they said to the lady, maybe we should guide people into the front of the seats where the windows are, because I don't know about you, if you walk past a cafe, I like to feel like, oh yeah, that food must be all right because it looks a bit full. You kind of look into an empty cafe and you go, maybe not. Mm-hmm. So they suggested, as human beings, young entrepreneurs, they suggested that maybe we could fill these seats first and guide people into these seats, and it would look full. And I remember them coming home and being really disheartened because, it had been, I think, the ego of the owner had got in the way. What are these young kids going to teach me, about business? And it was such a shame, because it's true. And I said to them, what a great idea. And I said to them, that's amazing. If I was the business owner, I'd really embrace that, that gift that you were giving her. But instead, I think her ego got in the way and she brushed it off. And so for me, it was, again, another way of saying we don't know. Little humans, big humans, they teach us everything. If we're just open to it, we can learn so much. And yeah, so I think in business, when I started this business or any of my business, I felt that I don't know everything. If I've got an amazing team of beautiful human beings, yes, no, I don't want the robots. I want the human beings. In my staff, they essentially have all got a gift. They've all got something that they're an expert in, or they've got ideas that I always say to the team, no idea is a silly idea, because your idea could transform this business. We're all working together. It's not my business, it's our business. I always say to them, and what you want to bring forth, share it, because our creative minds together can create something wonderful. So it's embracing that humanness and that uniqueness, that they've got an idea that could change your life or change your business if you're open to listening.
Oh, and amazing. And I do really, I feel sorry for the owner of that cafe who did not take that advice, because that is sound advice. Silly
Absolutely.
papa. So speaking of business, you are an incredible publisher and have a publishing agency. So would you like to share a little bit about your uniqueness in that space and how you help the humans that are releasing these books through your publishing agency day in and day out?
Absolutely. Well, the one thing that I've known, coming from a youth worker background, so I worked with a lot of adolescents, with the Department of Human Services, and the one thing that I found profound to help them make shift in their lives was through story. Now, nobody kind of likes to be told, especially a teenager, but through the sharing of story, they would then come up with their own exploration around that and go, do you think I could do that too? Or, and so those little stories that I would share, the My Friend sort of John stories, would enlighten them, give them a compelling future, because their past was pretty traumatic. And so they went, well, do you think I could learn the guitar too? Or do you think I could do this too? And I'm like, absolutely. And so I had huge success, and I got to kind of pick my hours, and I worked with the young adolescents and the young women's unit. And as I progressed from that, I then moved into coaching. I found that coaching allowed, again, some of these skills to take people where they are into a compelling future. So I then went on the journey of life coaching, and it was always story. And as I started to hear other people's story, I went, wow, like, you've overcome so much. And they would come to me for life coaching, and that then progressed into business coaching. But essentially, I thought, wow, you've got an amazing story. What if you could help other people with your story? That there may be just a chapter or a two before you. Maybe they've just gone through a separation. They've just gone through losing their job. They've gone through struggling, and you've found the answer for yourself. What if these people could share their story and they then could make a difference? So for me, it was a little bit like that movie, Pay It Forward. If I could just help as many human beings write their story, so then they could share that with others. And then this is this ripple effect where I believe that if we all share forward our teachings, if we all share forward our knowledge, together we can change the world. And so that then lent to, how do I make this easy for busy entrepreneurs like myself, when my mind goes bing, 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 goes all over the shop? How do you control?
Right, great. I'm glad it's not just me.
No, we're creatives. That's why we're doing what we're doing. We've got ideas. Our minds don't stop. And, there's lots of funny memes. An entrepreneur and their eyes are wide open at 4 o'clock because they've got a new idea, or a new way they're going to do it. And so I needed a team to help me pull it together. I grew my business from being in a book, and I had done some sort of compilation style books, but I needed people to be able to have their hand held from start to finish. Because even if you go with a traditional publisher, you're essentially still got to give them a manuscript. And yet, well, that's okay. How the hell do I make this manuscript come into something that's not just like one of our authors said it was like vomiting on a page, and then Dean Publishing just brought it all together because we're not expected to all be writers, and I'm not either. But I have got an amazing team of, amazing human beings that they love what they do. They're passionate about what they do. They were drawn in because of the vision that I have, because of the heart that I have in wanting to help people get their stories out there. Not just a traditional publisher where it's, well, how much am I going to make from this person's book? I'm more about, well, how does this person use this book to grow their business, to share their message more? How do they speak on stages and sell their book at the back of the room? How do they use the book to get it out there to the millions so that they can be transformed? So for me, it was a different publishing house. And for me, it was about drawing in like-minded people. And my team are amazing and they love what they do. And they're what I call like my little entrepreneurs, where they have I don't shun any ideas. I go to them as the director of the company and go, got a bit of an idea. What do you think about this? And they go, well, what about this and this? And I go, oh my God, I love that. Now I get to make the final decision, obviously, for where the business is going, but why would I use my brain alone when I've got amazing people in my team to say, well, we could do this? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's amazing. So together, I see it as we are creating this business and we are helping people share their story and their message out into the world to help others, whether that be in life, in business, in building property, in, we've done lawyers and dentists and doctors and health, people around health and wealth and mindset and, just everything you can imagine around helping people in their health, their wealth, their mindset, spirituality. As you know, from some of the books, these books don't just, help people. These books can save a life. So these books are really about people having the courage as we hold their hand to share their story. But we want to be able to help them get a return by building their business, building their platform from the book as well.
Yeah, beautiful. So there really is, and what I'm taking from this is that you yourself are not the secret sauce. You've got a beautiful team around you, and those have their own skill sets, but then the individual who's writing this book or whose book it is to create is being done with the support of all of your team, and then being given the creative opportunity to really release something that is truly theirs. Because if you go through a traditional publisher, it's not necessarily that way. Is that correct?
Yeah, like you might write you've still got to write the manuscript to submit it, but they get to choose the cover. They get to decide maybe this isn't to go in. We're going to ditch that part. So they get to edit it up a bit. Now, I'm not saying that they might edit all of it. I don't know to what degree, but you don't get full creative control. And the point is that you're also sharing the profits now with the publisher, whereas essentially our authors keep the copyright of their book. They keep 100% of the profits of their book, and they get to control how they want it distributed, because the world of publishing has changed so much. As we know, people go to online to buy their books. They don't always walk into a bookstore to purchase their books. And Amazon's changed the game because they keep their prices quite well. And that's why books, I think, haven't increased to where I believe they should go, because the value in a book is so much more than what it's sold for. It's someone's knowledge, If you want to invest in anything, it's like invest in a $30 book that's giving someone's whole knowledge. It's crazy. But some of our books obviously lend to the bookstore and, they've got a different game plan. So we always, where my skill set comes in is I come from an entrepreneurial background. I come from a business background. I have the creative in building businesses. So what I do with each author first is go, what do we want this book to do? Now, we all know we want to get it out to the world and we all know we want to make a difference, but what else? What else are you doing? Where else can we lead this to? How else can you help these people on a larger scale? I'm the real big picture person. So I help craft that first, before you then go to my amazing team that helps structure the book and help you write it and create it into a beautiful design. And nowadays too, in the design, people don't want to read just amazing content. They want it to be visually beautiful as well. They want it to, even if it's in black and white, you can do so much with grayscale to balance the book out, so that it's easy on the eyes for the reader and it's nice to read and it's broken up a little bit so that we can digest it. And sometimes, a lot of our books lend to story, your hero story or your story essentially combined together to allow the reader to not just get a book, but to literally get a transformation inside of the book as they explore their own learnings through, journaling, writing out things, answering the questions that the authors prompted them to spark their interest. So we're getting so much more from, our books with our authors because they're creating a master course essentially inside of a book.
Yeah, that's so true. And for a lot of us who haven't considered writing a book, we see them in the bookstore, we see them in the newsagents, we see them on Amazon, but not really. And I know for me, it wasn't until I considered doing my own that I went, oh, there's actually a bit to it. And there's a bit that goes into the background. And it's not just sitting down with someone and verbal diarrheaing your life story and then them typing it up into a pretty little thing for you. There's actually a lot to it. However, what I am hearing is that anyone can write a book. Anyone. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to be a millionaire. Anyone can write a book.
100%. I've seen so many people write a book and build their whole business from a book. That it's given, them confidence. They've also got this nice little package for when you can't get that much time with someone. They buy your book and they kind of get to know you, like you, trust you a little bit before maybe reaching out. That if you've got some coaching or mentoring or you've got a course or you offer some other product or service, they've kind of got to know a little bit about you. So yes, we do get people that are very successful in their business, like Priscilla from Bang and Bod, and we've got Macro Mike that we've got lots of different authors that have built multi-million-dollar companies that are now coming back and wanting to give back their story, to tell other entrepreneurs to have the hope that they started in their garage or they started. But then you've also got the people that go the other end and they write their book, they write where they're at now. It doesn't need to be, we're always growing. If we're not learning and growing, we're dying, and it's the end of our path, here on earth. So we're always going to have more books or more knowledge. But if you keep it, remember, I always used to say to people, remember, you only need to be a chapter ahead of someone else. Or maybe you've been through something in life or in business that you've come to a realization about and you had to figure it out all yourself. And now you've got a way of being able to explain it to somebody else so that they then can come to you as a mentor. Does that mean that you have to be famous? Absolutely not. We've got people that talk about bullying, that talk about suicide, that talk about separation, that talk about, how they got through menopause, how they healed their body, to people that have learnt skills around finance, or they've learnt skills around particular areas, and now they've spent decades of learning this knowledge, and now they're going to gift it to you in a book. So there's all different realms. I think the one thing that I like to tell everybody is that everybody has a book inside of them. Everyone has a story to share. It's just about getting it out into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for me, the idea of writing a book was not so much in my wheelhouse at this point in time, but I sat down and had a conversation with a friend of mine who was writing his book, and I was like, that is so courageous, well done. I said, what made you want to do it? And he's like, well, I've got a story to tell, and even if it just helps one person, then I am going to tell my story because I have the courage to do so. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. I don't think I could do that. And he looked at me blank in the face and he said, if you have a story inside of you, it would almost be selfish of you not to share. And I was like, whoa, that's a bit heavy. And he's like, no, imagine if your story saved one person. I was like, okay, all of a sudden I feel permission to share. And for a lot of people, it's that piece of permission that is lacking sometimes, because as Australians, we have this beautiful thing called tall poppy syndrome. And we also sit there and go, well, there's people way worse off than me, or there have been people that have been through different things than me. And there is, absolutely, that is so true. But I feel as though when that word courageous came through for me when I was speaking to him about him writing his book, and I said, if you are courageous enough to decide to tell your story, that is what sets apart the difference. It's not what happened to you and how bad it has to be. It's that for some of us, we have a spark that gets lit by going, oh my gosh, okay, I really just want to be able to help one person. And if this is the avenue, then let's do it. But then there's others that are like, I couldn't possibly, and that is okay as well. But that for me really stuck out. So I know that you yourself wrote a book. What was it that made you release your first book?
I think for me was exactly that. I think I was relationship coaching at the time. I worked with the world famous Dr. John Gray, who wrote the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I thought, well, he wrote a book. And what, showing my age now, but my coaching, I had a phone with a cord on the end of it. Didn't have all this Zoom, didn't have all this social media stuff. And for us, it was about getting up and tackling the weather of a freezing cold to go to a networking event. And I would walk around, hi, my name's Susan Dean, and you'd introduce yourself and you'd try and get around to as many people as possible. That was the networking game. And, what I found was I didn't have long to talk to people, and I wanted to know more about them. So I started to do the listening game. And as I listened to them, I'd say, well, that's amazing. Well, I help people build their relationships in their business or in their home and so forth. And so what I would do then, I would go, well, I can give them a business card, or I'd try and talk to them, and I'd talk to two people because I'd run out of time. So for me, it was strategically as in, well, I want to share my message of what I believe around relationships. I always believe that you can have it all. And I've had that strong belief. And for me, it was, well, if I can just share my story and I can help one relationship, because for me, it was, if I could help the parents connect more, then the kids get to benefit. So for me, it's always been about the children, coming from a youth worker, coming from these kids. I went, well, if I can just help people to understand whether that be that they should stay in a relationship or they should leave a relationship, but if the relationship wasn't at harm and it was just niggly things, could they work through this if they understood a little bit more about each other? So that was one avenue, is that I could get to more people. And then the other strategic way was that I couldn't get around to everyone. So I would just take my books with me. I would talk to someone and hand a book. But even before that, I had then helped others share their story so they could do the same, until I then went into the individual books, which is another ball game, because it's okay to write 5,000 words for a compilation book. It's a different story when you've got your book and it's you and your own book from start to finish. And that's where I felt it was a real skill set, because for me, I just didn't know where to start. I had a lot to say.
Yeah.
I had a lot to say. And when you said before about, being selfish, I got that lesson very early on in my coaching, very early. I think I would have been probably in my 20s. And I remember I was first coaching, and my coach turned around and I couldn't charge. I was like, well, how can I charge this poor lady? At that stage, there was this elderly lady that had not spoken to her children. And I went, I can't charge her. And he said, you must charge her or she won't value. And so I remember charging, and this poor woman was reusing tea bags. This is how much. But because she had so much skin in the game, she reconnected with her son after like 13 years. There was so much joy, but she had put skin in the game to get what she wanted. And so she took it seriously. And I went, you know what? The best thing I did was charge her. I think I only charged her $75, which was a lot for her and a lot at that stage. But I remember earlier on, that's the message I got. Stop being so selfish. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm the least selfish person that I know. What do you mean?
What are you talking about?
Selfish. Yeah, exactly. But when I looked at it, I went, you know what?
Yeah.
If you die with the book inside of you, you've taken all that knowledge with you. And how many people's lives could you have changed? How many people's lives could you have saved? How many people's lives, even if it's one, we're on this earth for, whatever anyone's belief is, we've got our time. One thing's guaranteed, we're going to leave this earth, whether we believe we come back or not. This part that we've got, what are we going to leave? What legacy are we going to leave? What are we showing our kids? I see so many kids where the parents do their book and the kids are beaming because they're like, there's books at school. There's books in the library. My mum or my dad's written a book. And the confidence that the individual gets. And this is what, even if the book is written, the confidence that you get to go out and do more, to speak on stage, to get out there on your podcasts or things like that, get on a podcast and talk about your book. It gives you that confidence to now go, I'm going to share this with the world because I've got my beautiful little package that I'm proud of to go, here you go.
Oh my goodness. I've got like all the feels going on right now.
And if you can't tell, I'm very passionate about what I do.
I love it so much. I love it. And it was funny because before we jumped on, I was saying to Susan that the hardest thing about doing a podcast episode is writing the bloody title. And I reckon I've just written about five potential titles down there. Normally I struggle. So, oh my goodness. I was like, wow, I'm really
wait till you get to your book title. We have lots of fun. The team all sit around the table and we go, okay, this is what the author wants. This is what the story's about. Okay, team, let's get all our brains together and look at different titles, different covers. So even our editing team will give some feedback to graphics, like just because we're not the ones, sometimes we tell our graphics team to do things and they go, that's a little harder than what you think. Why? We're speaking it. Can't you just create it out of our head? But we all encourage each other, but we all give, because sometimes it's that slight tweak that might be the admin person's given that has just completely popped that cover to another level. Titles and things like that are great, and I'm sure with your podcast titles, but titles of books are fun too. And you were talking before, I think, about how it's changed, and that as well in the group is the publishing game has changed so much because now we are online. A bit like my phone with the cord to now being everything online and video. The books are online. You've got to think about your Google word search, your SEO, your BISAC codes, all those little things that, like you said, you don't realize. The writing is one tiny part of it. Then there's editing is where it comes to life. Then the formatting is where it comes to life again. And then there's the cover, and then there's the back blurb and how that's going to be with the search engines. And, there's so much to it. And I think, and strategically thinking where you want that book to go as well. So there is lots of moving parts, but my job is to go, we work with entrepreneurs that are either got, they're ready to invest because they know where they're going. And they've not got a lot of time, and they know that they're like me, their brain goes everywhere and they need a team to control them and hold their hand each time. And then there's other people that are just starting out and they go, I just really want some help. And that's why I've been developing over the last year with decades of knowledge that I'm going to be launching in the new year, a new program where people can come in and self-pace, but they're getting, I know there's lots out there, but until you know the quality that you want, there's so much that's not out there that people don't tell you about plagiarism. They don't tell you about referencing and indexing, and they don't, even if you get writers, they don't know that you can't use that's owned by Hay House or that's owned by this author. So we make sure that we educating people on what you can and can't do and how to get that copyright. What's the best copyright for you to put in there and all the intricates. But then the people that are busy that go, I just want the team, they just pay us and we just work with them from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. I was co-authored in a book, and I know for them, they self-published and they did a brilliant job. They did all the hard work. All I had to do was write a chapter. That was it. So it was a really scarily easy process for me. So I had a very unrealistic expectation. But I know for them, they really struggled because Amazon per country is different, or there's some that you can, there's some that you can't. And they were having really big problems with getting it across as many Amazons as they possibly could. And the time frame that they set just kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And I mean, as I said before, there's so much.
I've done compilation books all around the world, and they are a big project to do, absolutely. But Amazon's even got more crazy with AI now. You cannot contact them. Even the print on demand, Ingram and things like that that people use for a lot of the self-publishing, they're not giving that human contact anymore. It's all via email. It's all via, and you wait. And we're in the publishing game, and we know what we're doing, and we're even making sure we get to the right contacts, or we've got higher levels of contact. But even with us, we had a beautiful graphics where we meant for the words to come off the page. It was the design that we had. Well, Amazon kept knocking it back. And of course, you can't speak to anyone. So we had to adjust the files to allow it to happen, because we had figured out, and no one would figure out because we'd done everything that we'd ever done, but the words had come off because of the design, and they just went, oh, it's like the words being chopped. Of course, it's all automated. There's no human being looking at it going, I get what they've done. It's all automated. So it's not just the writing, but it's also about the structure. I think what's really important that people don't understand is the structure is so, so important. It's like the foundation. It's like the slab of your home. If you get that right, the writing process is so much easier. And like you said, compilation, easy. Try write a whole book that flows for the reader. And that's what's really important. And, making it simple for the reader to digest as well.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, there is so much. It's so much. I love it. Thank you. But I would love to jump back a little bit, because you did mention in there, and I'm dying to hear from you, when you wrote your individual book. And I would love to just tell me a little bit about, as you said, it was a totally different ballgame. It was different writing it because it was all about you, and walk us through the mentality to start it, and then kind of take us on the journey that you went through into the launch.
Yeah, look, for me, it was a little different because I wrote it and then I ended up owning the publishing company, and I was in partnership. So I had what it was when I had wrote that particular book, for me, it was easy. I just wrote from the heart. I just let it flow. And I think this is what's really important. When you write it, remember you're writing it for them, not for you. As much as people say sometimes publishing is a real ego thing, I think it's changed now so much. I think people write from the heart. People don't want to see a logo. We can go and look at a website and it's great, but if someone's prepared to have the courage to put themselves out there in a book, you can pretty much say that they're putting themselves out there, so they're not hiding behind some scam or something else. So that gives you that authority. So when I was writing, I just wrote from the heart. I just wrote what I wanted people to know, and I never held back. This is the one thing people go, oh, but if I share that, will they want to be coached by me? If I tell them that, will they want to do my program? No, the more you share, the better it is, because no one does it on their own anyway. No one can make, they can do certain things on their own, but when they want more, they'll always reach out. So I really told them what I believed inside of a relationship. What that did was, and then obviously sent it to a professional editor. Because I was a writer, I was writing from my heart, but someone needed to make sure not just the grammar and spelling, but did it land? Was there a piece missing? Like when we were working with an author, they jumped from living at home to Sydney. And when I was reading it, I'm like, hang on, didn't he live with his parents? How'd he get to Sydney? Whereas we would pick that up and say, can you tell me? And it might only be a sentence, but now the reader's not confused. Yeah. So I, of course, sent it to a professional editor, get it edited, and then, of course, formatted. But because I'd then taken over the company, essentially, I then, of course, did all the projects. That, how I must say, though, was a different ballgame, because it was very different in those times. Like, publishing has changed a lot because of the self-publishing element, but also you could speak to people. Everything wasn't automated. So if something went wrong, you could go, hey, why isn't that going well? How do I get this? What do I do there? And so I did a lot of calling and figuring things out. But now, If you don't know, you're on this chat with this robot and you're just like, I can't get this up, I give up.
Yeah.
And that's what really saddens me, is if people give up. Hence why I'm creating more a really comprehensive way of people doing it themselves, that's supported, that even if they just want to jump off and go, okay, I just want the cover done, or I just want an edit, they've got that opportunity, that they maybe don't need their hand held, maybe they don't have that that long-term goal of their business, and they're looking at going, well, I just need a book out there, even if it's just to help somebody. So that's why we developed that. But going back to there, it was the same as what you said. I had the courage to say, I need to help people, because if I can help people create an amazing relationship, then the kids are going to benefit from this. Even if the relationship, as I wrote, was to themselves. A relationship didn't have to just be with a partner. It's the relationship to yourself. What is it that you're doing to heal yourself, to look at yourself, to look in the mirror, to look at better ways that you can enjoy life and joy? So relationships are relationships to self, relationship to partner, relationship to friends, relationship to staff, relationship with your children. I mean, I've got an amazing relationship with my girls that I think I socialize with my daughters more than anything, but they both now work with us within the company. And that happened because we have such great communication. And communication for me was really important. So open communication is a core message that I always say. Don't tell me something in a year's time that happened. Tell me now. Let's be open. Let's deal with it. Let's see what we can do to navigate through this. So open communication. So those were strong messages that I knew worked for me, and I wanted to share them. And you know, even if one person just picked that up and went, well, gosh, I wasn't listening to my daughter. I was trying to fix her and solution her and give her answers, whereas she's just a little me. She needs to be heard and understood, and maybe I just need to do that. And so, you know, we've got that relationship. I've now got both daughters working for me, and I have to say my grandchildren, because my granddaughter runs through this place like she owns it, but we have a cot in the back room. You know, I've created that because I wrote this book on relationships. I published it out there, but it was more than about, it's not about me now. I want to help other people get their story out, because I've got a story, but what about all these other people's stories?
Yeah, I love that so much. And you said my favorite word in there, which is flow. Let it flow. Because I know that I've heard about this thing called writer's block.
Yep.
So if we would overcome writer's block and land in flow, what would be your piece of advice to all of your writers or people thinking about writing a book?
What do they say? Edit sober and write drunk. I won't suggest that, but that is a saying.
Well, it's like liquid courage, right?
Yeah, liquid courage.
That's what you really need.
Yeah, I think what's really important is to be in flow. And when you write from the heart, I think you're in flow. Don't get me wrong, you might need to go up and checks and go away and do some statistics and do some stuff later, but keep in flow. Just get it out. Don't edit. Don't correct along the way. Because it stops your creativity. When you're in creativity, you're in flow. You know, when, I don't know about you, but I get my best inspirational ideas in the shower, you know.
Or driving.
Yeah. And it's just, you're just there and you're in flow, and your mind starts creating. So I think that if we're in our logic brain and we're trying to get it right and we're trying to edit it, and is that right? And should I say it that way or should I say it that way? We're not going to be in our creative flow. So we need to get over to our creative side where we're just putting it down. Doesn't matter how it sounds, doesn't matter how it looks, doesn't matter if I spelled a word wrong, doesn't matter about comma, grammars, nothing. Just dump what's in here in your head out onto paper. That's how you'll stay in flow. And writer's block a lot of the time is that we get into things like imposter syndrome. We get into doubting ourselves. Is it going to be good enough? Will anyone read it? Our writer's block comes from trying to make it right. And it comes with all that side of it. So if we don't want the writer's block, find yourself, you know, we talk about this in the course, find yourself a beautiful, light a candle, get yourself in a nice area, take yourself away. You know, we have writers' retreats. Take yourself away. Take yourself to a place where, you know, even I used to do writing when the kids were in bed and get up at like crazy hours of 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd get my creative burst, get my cup of tea, and I would smash out more in that time than when the kids would wake up. Yes, I might need to have an early night the next night, but think when your creativeness is best. And mine is usually at night. And so sleep in the morning, go with the flow of the day, have a bit of a sleep in, and know that you're going to plan. And sometimes you can be a person that plans. Everyone's different. Block out writing time. I think it's good to try and block it out, to plan it, but then just get in your creative flow. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge what you're writing. Just write.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's so true. I've found for myself as well that sometimes if I pre-plan things to do things in advance and I go, yeah, I'm going to do it between 1 and 2 on this day, I get to 1 and 2 and I'm like, God, the last thing I feel like doing is that. But also too, I mean, again, times have changed. We've got voice to text on our phone. We don't even have to physically type it anymore. We can just talk it and it's there.
Absolutely. There's so many apps out there now, you know, especially with AI, as you know, there's some chat out there, and look, I wouldn't suggest you write your book with AI because it'll be plagiarized to the hills, but you can use it to give you some inspiration. So I also, talk about that a lot, where I say to someone, look, if you are talking about the top 10 things to eat on a summer's day, I don't know, whatever that might be, top 10 recipes for summertime salads, and you want to ask it that, give me that. And then you might go specific and say what ingredients would be in this particular one. I'm just using that as an example. It will give you inspiration and ideas, but you then need to mix it up a bit. If you want to ask, or you might go, oh, I thought of 8 of them, but I didn't think of those 2. Oh, I'll write about them. So use it more for a bouncing off of ideas. You might even say to it, what would be a really good title of a book that's talking about X, Y, Z? And give me 10 examples. And you might go, I like those 2 words, and I'll mix it with that. So I think it's good to use it in that. Voice to text, you've got Otter AI, OTTER.ai. You've got other platforms that you can use that turn voice to text. Absolutely. You can get it converted by rev.com, I think it is. There's lots of them out there that convert now. So if you're a speaker, by all means, but get your structure right first.
Yeah, that's so important. And this is, again, the beauty of why having someone like you in the corner and your team in the corner, because you have permission to just get it onto a piece of paper and let your guys have a read through it and do the editing and make sure that it's all in sync and makes sense. So
and then just jump back on and say, hey, you talked about this. What did you mean by this? Because sometimes the other thing that we do is we know it. Like we know the word, we might go, oh yes, accountability, responsibility, ownership. We know what that means to somebody else, that just because we might know certain words and we've got an interpretation of them, somebody that may be coming into this first personal development world, somebody that's coming in and learning, they might want to have some examples or some stories around that, or there might be a little bit, it's kind of like, or something. So sometimes when people are a little bit more advanced, they don't realize that they're writing for someone that may be up and coming. So what does that look like? Or like you said, entwining stories in there. Hey, this would be a really good part for a story. If you've got a story where you did this, so you've got a go between you as the author, the creative, and the reader, and we're the ones in between going, well, the reader might get stuck here, or the reader might want to know a little bit more what this is. So that's the other advantage of working with a team as well.
Oh, I love it so much. It's so good. And look, the one thing for me that really popped out when we spoke earlier was when you said, back yourself.
100%. I think in my long entrepreneurial career, I'm in my mid-50s now, hit over the mid-50s, started, in the early 2000s, in kind of working for myself, getting out. I've worked around children, that's a whole story in itself. But the one thing that I always felt, oh, I had to have a partner. I had to have somebody that would tell me how to do this. And I think everywhere along the way, the universe, you talk about being in flow. I think when you're in flow, it's because you're on the path that you were meant to be on. And I'm in flow because I know that I'm on the path. Yes, do I need to tweak things, as in sometimes you'll have a bump in the road, but essentially, you're in flow. You light up. No one gets me out of bed. I can't wait to get up. I can't wait to speak to new authors. I know I'm exactly where I need to be. And I think the one thing was that I didn't back myself. I didn't go, you've got the answers within you. Go and, get the team around you that you might need to help create this vision, but back yourself. Back yourself, because yourself knows where it needs to go, and you're probably the only one stopping yourself. So be your own best friend and back yourself, and go on this journey and bring an amazing team around you to help bring it to life, and they'll follow. I was speaking to someone the other day, and he highlighted, it's like, you don't lead. If you follow your own path, people will just follow with you. Then lead. Just get out there and back yourself, do what you're passionate about, what you want to do in the world, and just it will flow with you. People will flow with you as well.
Yeah, I love that so much. And look, it's perfectly aligned with what you were saying before about, writer's block and imposter syndrome and all those kinds of things. And we truly are and can be our own worst enemy.
Yep.
So if we just shut up and get out of the way.
And that's the thing, like you talked before, if we get out of our own way and we make it about them, it's like speaking from stage. I never know what I say half the time. Every podcast, I don't work with being in structure. It doesn't work for me. That's why I got my team to structure. I don't work in structure. The point is, I get up and I know the message that I want to speak, and I speak from the heart for the audience. And I can't do a talk exactly the same, because I don't know it off by heart, and I don't put it in any major structure. I just know what I need to say. And that's the same with a book. You're standing on stage and you're speaking to the audience. It's about, what are the audience going to leave with? What are you going to serve that audience with? Because when you're on stage, if you're ever a speaker, and believe me, I've been there and done this, and it's like, not until you do it the wrong way, you know what the right way is. And the wrong way for me is, I was in my head, oh my God, am I going to remember that? What else did I do? Am I going to forget that? What did I need to do? And so I'm not in the heart, and I'm not flowing through the mouth to talk, to serve the audience that are there. The same as with a book. It's not about you. It's about, if you can just flow what you know onto these pages, it's about the readers. It's not about you. That way you get out of your own way, and you do a damn much better job than what you would if you were making it about you in your head.
Yeah, and it makes it so much easier when you know who your audience is. And, for instance, if it is like a self-development book, and it is an experience that you have yourself overcome, so you're writing from experience, you're simply writing to your younger self. You're writing to you, like, what would you want to or needed to hear at that age or at that stage of life, or when you were in that rut? What did you need to hear that could have potentially pulled you out or helped you, sidestep a big, giant, turbulent part of life? It all of a sudden, you're right, the ego disappears, because it's not about being right or being seen. It's about helping, and it's about coming back to that place of, what did I need? If I can help me at that age or that stage or that phase, I can help somebody else.
100%. And they might only be a little bit before you. What book could you have picked up that could have helped you, that you wish was around? And now you get to be that one that gets that book. And it doesn't matter if someone's got a similar story. It's not yours. A story is like a thumbprint. The way you write a book is like a thumbprint. No one else has it. It's uniquely yours. And sometimes we need to hear a story in a certain way for it to resonate with us. So whether we read your book and another book that might have it's always going to be a different story and a different way to write. It's never going to be the same.
Yeah. And at the right time too. We hear what we want to hear. We hear what we need to hear at the right time.
And, like I always say to people, a book doesn't just change a life. It can save a life.
Wow. Oh my goodness. And on that note, I'm I'm so grateful to have had you today. That was remarkable. I've got so many notes written down, and I'm so grateful for you sharing your time and your story with us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, and I look forward to getting your book out into the world, and maybe some of your listeners. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So as you've already heard, you all have a book inside of you. And do you want to die with your book inside of you? I know I don't. So Susan, where can people reach you?
They can just go to deanpublishing.com and click on any of the Speak with an Expert. The great thing is I like to speak to every individual author myself, because I, want to build a beautiful, it's like a family when you come in, and I really want to understand you so that I can serve you best. So yeah, jump on a call. It's just a conversation to explore it, and then I can guide you in the best path possible for you.
Amazing, incredible. And thank you to all of my amazing listeners for coming back again for another episode of She Can Humanize Business. As you know, you can find me on all of the social channels for She Can, and look out for the next up and coming guests. We have a couple of cameo series of podcasts coming out where I'm a guest on someone else's podcast, so that you can all learn a little bit more about me. So I hope you like those, but please tune in next week. We'll be back again. Thank you so much again, Susan. Everybody have an incredible day, and I will speak to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I would love to hear your feedback around what resonated and what key lessons and learnings that you took out of today's episode. You can find me on Instagram and on LinkedIn under the She Can Humanize Business podcast or Kiani Mills. I really hope that you were able to see, feel, and experience a new way of humanizing business.